What's going on, guys? Austin here, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the best bets for Super Bowl 56. So let's start this off. Going ahead, we're going to talk about the spread and the over-under. Easy to start out, right? I like the Rams minus 4.5 or the money line, which is 195, not too bad. And the over-under here is at 48.5. I like the under there as well. Now, the Rams minus 4.5, I think that the Rams are an excellent first half team. They get out to really good leads, and they've been playing somewhat conservative lately when they get those leads, but I doubt that they'll continue that pattern in the Super Bowl, especially, with the mentality that Matthew Stafford has had in his last several fourth quarters. I mean, he just completely snatched the souls of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was demoralizing what they did to the San Francisco 49ers. Another 10-point lead blown in the fourth quarter of that NFC Championship game for them. Now, the reason that I like the unders over here is the Los Angeles Rams they covered the spread 2 out of their 3 playoff games, and they hit the under in 2 out of their 3 playoff games as well. Now, the reason that they didn't hit the under against that Tampa Bay game right there is because, remember, they fumbled 4 times. If they keep just 3 of those fumbles, they're allowed to fumble away once. I don't even care. They're going to win that game probably 33 or 36-6. 36-6. And that's the under right there. But since they kept fumbling, giving the ball away to Tampa Bay, letting them score, giving them touchdown, field goal, they ended up hitting the over in that game. I doubt they're going to fumble 4 times again because they didn't do it against San Francisco. They only had one turnover at all in the San Francisco 49ers game, and it was the tip ball in the end zone that went for the interception on their first drive. And then over on the Cincinnati side, Cincinnati, you see, they've got an ability to cover the spread either way and hit the under, right? So they covered their 6-point favorite at home against the Raiders, still hit the under on that 48.5. They beat Tennessee under 48.5, and they beat Kansas City under 54.5. Obviously, we would love to see the number go up from 54.5. And maybe if the line goes up from 58.5 to 58, 59, 59.5, maybe kind of wait to see what that does if people start putting money on, then keep putting more money on the under. But it's 58.5 here. I still like the under right there. I wouldn't be surprised if the Los Angeles Rams ended up winning this game 25-20 or maybe even 27-18. Seems like a decent number. Now, the halves here are really interesting because Matthew Stafford is the best second half quarterback in the NFL, and he's also the best fourth quarter comeback in the NFL. However, the Los Angeles Rams play extremely conservative in the second half, and so he doesn't always have the volume that you'd want him to have in the second half because they get leads and they play like they have a lead, right? So if you take a look at the Los Angeles Rams, they're plus 21, plus 17, and minus 10 against the 49ers in their 3 first halves. The reason that I don't necessarily like that number is because they would have had a touchdown against the 49ers in the first half instead of just the field goal. They would have had a touchdown in the first half against the 49ers had it not gotten tipped and intercepted, which swings extra points both ways. So that's not too concerning for me. And then on the other side, Los Angeles in the second half, you see down there in the bottom right-hand corner, LA is plus 2, minus 14, and plus 6 in the 3 second halves. Don't be too concerned about that minus 14. That was the Tampa Bay game where they had 3 second half fumbles. Again, that's uncharacteristic of them. They're not going to do it. Matthew Stafford's only thrown 3 interceptions. That one first half against San Fran, and LA, I think they've only fumbled like 5 times like this on the entire year. They're not going to fumble, 3 times in the second half against the Cincinnati Bengals. So that minus 14 shouldn't be too concerning. Don't think the Bengals are going to stage a comeback. On the Cincinnati side of things, they're plus 7, plus 3, and minus 11 in their 3 first halves. It should be noted that minus 11, that playing against Kansas City is a lot more like playing the Los Angeles Rams than playing the Titans and playing the Raiders is playing the Los Angeles Rams. Like, the Rams are a lot closer to Kansas City than the Raiders and the Titans are. So that minus 11, to me, that seems like the more accurate number. Over on the other side, Cincinnati held their lead. They held their lead, and then they staged that comeback, which was when they started rushing 3, dropping 8. The thing is, you can't do that. You cannot do that against the Los Angeles Rams, because the Los Angeles Rams will run the football. They don't have a great running game, but they'll run the football. They'll run it and they'll run it and they'll run it as long as they have the lead and as long as you show them that you're scared of the pass. So they're not going to play that way against Kansas City. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, when he doesn't have a running game and when his receivers aren't wide open, he's not very good. And so that's why Cincinnati was able to crawl back into this game. I wouldn't be too concerned about that in this game. So that's why I love the Rams in the first half. I wouldn't be surprised if they jumped out to a 17-7 lead. And I like the Cincinnati Bengals +2 in the second half because I think it's going to be about even. I think the Rams are probably going to score 7 or 10 points in the second half, and the Cincinnati Bengals might score 10 to 13 points in the second half. Now let's talk about passing props. These passing props are pretty interesting. I like them here. The number for Matthew Stafford was 279.5, but now it's 280. So a lot of people are betting the over. That's something interesting right there. I've got the under on Matthew Stafford passing yards. I've got the over on Joe Burrow passing yards. I think Joe Burrow is going to pass for more yards than Matthew Stafford. Now, conversely, I've got the over on Matthew Stafford passing touchdowns, and I've got the under on Joe Burrow passing touchdowns. See, because against the Los Angeles Rams, Kyler Murray had 0 touchdowns. Tom Brady had 1 touchdown, and Jimmy Garoppolo only had 1 touchdown. Now, obviously, Joe Burrow is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's been having a better playoffs than Kyler Murray had the last couple of weeks of the season. But the 1 touchdown that Tom Brady threw was a breakdown in coverage. Jalen Ramsey didn't know what was going on. And the 1 touchdown that Jimmy Garoppolo threw was a slant route that Deebo Samuel, this probably had the second best season from a skill position player, if not third, if you want to count Jonathan Taylor. The top 3 skill position player this year just took that rush, crossing route, ran it up for a ton of yards in for the touchdown. So the Rams, as far as passing touchdowns, they've been extremely good this playoffs. Matthew Stafford has 6 total passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. You can see his stats right there. First game, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. 336 yards against Tampa Bay, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. 337 yards against San Francisco, 2 touchdowns, and the 1 bobbled interception that was going to be a touchdown. But Matthew Stafford made up for it by throwing an interception that didn't get caught, right? And on the other side here, Joe Burrow, he had 2 passing touchdowns against the Raiders, 0 interceptions, 244 yards, right? They led comfortably most of that game. 348 yards. That one was a significantly closer game. 0 touchdowns, however, and 1 interception. And then against the Kansas City Chiefs, 250 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, I think that as far as defensively, the Rams are a lot more similar to the Titans than they are to the other 2 teams that Joe Burrow played, the Raiders and the Chiefs, because they have a really, really good pass rush that's really been coming along. Between Von Miller, Aaron Donald, you've got Jalen Ramsey in the backfield. And take a look at the team rushing. See, so the Los Angeles Rams, over here against the Arizona Cardinals, they rushed the football because they dominated that game from the start, and so they just started handing off. And they were going to start playing conservative against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, they started fumbling. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I'm going to bring it up again and again. But they had 73 rushing yards, and then they only had 70 rushing yards against the San Francisco 49ers because they were down for much of that game. Something that you'll notice, you'll drop down, you'll take a look at how many rushing yards that the Rams allowed, and it's the under. It's under whatever in all of those games. Because the Cardinals, good rushing team. Tampa Bay, good rushing team. San Francisco, phenomenal rushing team. Held them to 61, 51, and 50 total rushing yards. Let's go to the other side. You'll see that the Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most rushing yards from the Cincinnati Bengals, 116 team rushing yards from the Bengals. The Titans gave up 65, and the Raiders gave up 83. Now, again, the team that I said is most similar to the Rams is the Titans, that 65 number right there. So I think I'm not going to say that they're going to hold him to 65 rushing yards, but it's definitely going to be, I think it's definitely going to be under 90, under 80, right? And this is how many rushing yards that the Bengals have allowed: 103, 140, 139. So if the Rams do what they do, get out to a big first half lead with Matthew Stafford passing some, then they're going to start rushing the football like they want to do. You see what they did when they got a big lead against Arizona. They rushed the football. So that's why I have Matthew Stafford in the under. Once they get into the red zone, the best way to score, don't care who you are, Matthew Stafford to Odell, then Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp, right? So that's why I've got the over on Matthew Stafford touchdowns, because he's thrown 2 touchdowns. Probably should have thrown a few more, neither here nor there. And then on the Joe Burrow side of things, I think they're going to be down a lot. Right? I think they're going to be down in the first half, and I think they're going to be down all of the second half. I don't know if they're going to have a lead. Joe Burrow is going to be passing a lot. I'm going to take the over on touchdowns because the Rams don't give up touchdowns that easily. I think he'll get 1. I don't think he'll get 2. If there was an interception slot on DraftKings, I'd take the over on half for Joe Burrow, and I'd take the under on 1.5 for Matthew Stafford, or whatever it would be, because I think Matthew Stafford's probably going to throw 1. Joe Burrow is probably going to throw 1 as well. Now let's go to receiving props. This one is kind of convoluted. Stick with me here. So take a look over on the right side. These are the over-unders. Cam Akers under the 2.5 receptions. Cooper Kupp over the 8.5 receptions. Joe Mixon over the 3.5 receptions. Odell over the 5.5, and T. Higgins over the 5.5. As far as receiving yards go, pretty much just follow that out. Cooper Kupp over the 104.5 receiving yards, Jamar Chase under the 79.5, T. Higgins over the 69.5, and Joe Mixon over the 26.5. Let's go take a look on this left side of the screen. So we see what Cooper Kupp has done here in his 3 total playoff games. He's got 23 receptions, 386 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he's basically been averaging 128, maybe more. I think it's like 130 something yards per game, and 23 receptions. 23 divided by 3. It's a little bit, 23, because 24 divided by 4 is 8. So that 8 number is a really good solid number for Cooper Kupp. I think he's probably going to have around 10 or 12. And I think it's also good for Odell, because 5.5, you take a look at Odell's stats. He's got 20 receptions in 3 games, which comes out to a lot better number than 5.5. And Cam Akers, here's why I like the under. He's got 5 receptions in his total postseason. Now, 3 of them came in one game, 2 came in the other 2. The 62 yards is a little deceiving because one of them came on the super long screen pass for him. Now, Cam Akers' overall receiving yards, I think, is like 8.5 in this game, but don't be surprised if he hits that on 1 reception. Still take the under on the 2.5. I don't think he's getting 3. Right now, let's take a look at what the Bengals have given up. So to Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, 95 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 7 receptions, 78 yards and a touchdown. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 142 yards and a touchdown. So these are like the top 2 targets for each team. And they've given up a significant amount of yards to all of them except Darren Waller, Zay Jones, and Hunter Renfrow. It wasn't a huge amount because it was more spread out amongst the 3. But that's why I think that Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham can definitely get over Cooper Kupp, his 104.5. Odell was 69. I really didn't know what to do with it, so I left it out. And then let's take a look at the Bengals side of things, right? So the Bengals, Joe Mixon, he has 13 receptions for 106 yards in this postseason, right? So if you're telling me over under at 3.5, I'm absolutely going to take the over, especially because I think they're going to be down in the first half, and I think Joe Burrow is going to have to pass a lot. So this over number on Joe Mixon receptions and receiving yards, because 26.5 is not a lot. You divide 106 by 3, it's like 20, it's like 23. No, not 23. It's way more than that. It's 39, I think. I'm silly. And then Jamar Chase, 20 receptions, 279 yards and a touchdown. He's having a fantastic postseason, only overshadowed by Cooper Kupp. So you take a look at Jamar Chase's number. I'm going to take the under on the 79 yards, but I'm going to take that for one reason only, and his name is Jalen Ramsey, right? I'm going to take that under, and I'm going to take the over on T. Higgins, who has 14 receptions and 209 yards, for one simple reason, and that's because I think the Rams' number 2 cornerback, I think his name is it Darius Williams? Let's take a look. I know it was here. Let's see who it is. That is old. All right. Rams depth chart. Number 11, Darius Williams. Look at that. So, Darius Williams, number 11, he's about 5'9", 200 pounds, right? Not to be confused with Jalen Ramsey, who's like 6'3", 220, just solid, beefy man, right? T. Higgins is 6'4", 220 pounds. He's the Jalen Ramsey size. But Jalen Ramsey, in my opinion, should be covering Ja'Marr Chase, which is why I'll take Ja'Marr Chase on the under, and I'll take T. Higgins on the over, because T. Higgins is going to be able to body him in the mid range. He's going to be able to get those big tight end receptions, especially with CJ Uzomah out. So take the over on that 5.5 for T. Higgins. Take the over on the 69.5 receiving yards. Tyler Boyd hasn't really been doing much this playoffs. I think he's better than that, but take a look at what the Rams have given up as far as receptions, receiving yards this year, right? So you've got 4 receptions and 72 yards and a touchdown to Debo, 4 receptions and 69 yards to Brandon Ayuk, 8, 119 and a tub to Mike Evans, 4 and 85 to Gronk, 6 and 51 to Kirk, 5 and 32 to Rondale Moore. So the only receiver that really showed them the business was Mike Evans. And I think about 45, 50 of those yards came on 1 reception for that touchdown. So I know you obviously can't take it away, but imagine if that number was 7 receptions for 80 yards, right? It changes the whole complexity of this dynamic, which is why that I think, anybody could break away at any point, and it could be Ja'Marr Chase, but I still think he's going to be under that 79.5, while Joe Mixon, who's really good receiving back, he's going to be over that 3.5 number. I think that 3.5 number is disrespectful to Joe Mixon, and he's going to be over the 26.5 receiving yards. So let's take a look at the rushing props. I think this is my last slide right here. So over on the left, you'll see what my numbers are. Cam Akers, I'll take the over 63.5. Joe Mixon, I'll take the under 63.5. And Joe Burrow, I'll take the over an 11.5. So let's take a look at what Cam Akers has done in his 3 playoff games. He has 17 rushes for 55 yards, the average right there, 24 rushes and 48 yards against Tampa, and 13 rushes for 48 yards against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, none of these are great averages yet, but all of these teams have really good defensive lines. You've got Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt on the Cardinals. You've got, that whole stacked Tampa Bay team. You've got guys like Vita Vea and Devin White and Ndamukong Suh on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then we all know how good the San Francisco 49ers defensive line is. But take a look at how many rushing yards that the Cincinnati Bengals have allowed: 103, 140, and 139. That's a lot. They have yet to hold an opponent under 100 rushing yards as a total team. And Cam Akers is absolutely, look at those rushes total, like 17, 24, and 13. That's absolutely the number 1 running back on the Rams. As soon as they get that lead, I think he's going to start chewing away at that clock, especially if the Bengals try to drop back and stop Matthew Stafford from breaking it back. Take a look at Joe Mixon over here. He's got 17 rushes for 48 yards, 2.8. Obviously, that's the average. 14 for 54 and a touchdown, 21 for 88 and 42. Now, the one team that I think the Rams are most similar to was the Titans. That's that middle one right there. 14 rushes for 54 yards and a touchdown. Don't be surprised if Joe Mixon has a touchdown against the Rams. The Rams can kind of give up holes up the middle. The one reason that San Francisco kind of broke their back so much is because they kept sweeping side to side, and it's really hard to stop that. But I still think that with how ahead the Rams will be, that you're going to be able to limit Joe Mixon's rushes. maybe not his average, but his rushes are going to be down because they're not going to be able to rush. Just look at the total rushing yards, 61, 51, and 50 that the Rams have allowed. And that's because they've had the lead for a lot of these games. And over here, Joe Burrow, I like the over 11.5 because I think that with this pass rush, with Von Miller and with Aaron Donald, you're going to be able to get to Joe Burrow a couple times. You're going to force him out of the pocket. And basically, the question is Joe Burrow going to run for 1 first down? I think the answer there is yes. I think that one's a pretty safe one. I think the number for Matthew Stafford was like 9.5. Not confident about that, but that's why we're here. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what bets you think are the best. Don't go and bet all of these things in one singular same game parlay. That's a terrible idea. But let me know what bets are going to work for you, and let me know where I cost you some money. Be sure to like and subscribe this video and stay up to date on all of our future content.